Hi everyone, I'm Renee Schulz-Jacobson, and those of you who follow me on social media know that I constantly post articles about people who have been injured by benzodiazepines. I rant about big pharma and doctors who are misinformed about the destruction that these drugs cause when used long term. Believe me, it was a sobering experience to recognize that I had developed an unintentional chemical dependency to a drug that my doctor promised was safe. For me, it was a catch-22. I was sick on the drug, but coming off of it was worse than I could have ever imagined. For 3 years, I was homebound, isolated and alone, suffering from suicidal ideation, paranoia, and agoraphobia. It was truly a horrible kind of solitary confinement. I used to think that I was alone in my experience, but as it turns out, I was far from being alone. Mine was not an isolated case, and tens of thousands of people have been injured and are suffering, isolated and disabled in their homes, sometimes for years. Now that I'm doing well, it has become part of my mission to speak out against drug companies who continue to market these drugs and doctors who are continuing to prescribe them. If you are currently taking a benzodiazepine, drugs like Klonopin, Valium, Ativan, or Xanax, or if you've been taking other psychiatric drugs, I want you to know it is possible to get off of these drugs. The weaning process is slow and it can be very uncomfortable and challenging, but in the end, you will be free. I was prescribed Klonopin because I was suffering from insomnia. That is what I presented with. That was the symptom that I presented with. But the real reason that I had insomnia was that my husband and I were having enormous difficulties in our marriage, including a huge sexual incompatibility, which I did not have the skills to handle at the time. I should have been referred to a marriage counselor or some kind of a therapist, but instead I wound up at a psychiatrist's office, and within 15 minutes I was prescribed psychiatric drugs, which really started me on a very unproductive path. Chances are that if you're watching this video, you started using medication during a difficult time in your life too. Maybe you are going through a divorce or a death or some loss of a job, some kind of traumatic experience in your life. And at that minute or at that moment, taking a drug seemed like an answer to your pain or your sadness or your suffering. But I really want you to understand that drugs are never a long-term solution. They were never meant to be a long-term solution. And these drugs, this class of drugs in particular, were never designed to be taken for more than 2 to 4 weeks. So while it isn't safe to abruptly stop taking these medications or go cold turkey, there are ways to wean yourself off slowly and carefully. But even the Ashton method is a little aggressive in its strategy, so I encourage people to take it slow. When I was sick and I could not work, I started painting, pairing images of some pretty sad-faced girls with some affirming, encouraging affirmations, and that painting that started as a coping skill has turned into a thriving business for me. In addition to painting these days, I'm teaching. I go to schools and talk to students about staying away from drugs that impair brain chemistry, drugs that are illegal and doctor prescribed. And I also offer emotional support to people going through this nightmare as a way of giving back, because I know what you are going through. Today is July 11th, World Benzodiazepine Awareness Day, but I truly feel that one day is not enough. So this year, starting right now and for the rest of July, I am making a commitment to donate 50% of all my online art sales to the Benzo Information Coalition to use as they see fit to educate people about the dangers of these destructive brain-altering drugs. August 1st will be my 6th year off Klonopin. Everyone wants to know if I am 100% healed. And I will say this, that is a tough one. If you were to see me from the outside and you would think that I am completely fine and that I have my life back and that I'm back to baseline. But I would say that if you cut yourself deeply with a knife, chances are it leaves a scar, right? There's a scar on your hand, and it's a reminder that you cut yourself very deeply. And the same is true of this injury. Benzodiazepine withdrawal, like any trauma, leaves a scar, albeit it is an invisible one. So these days, I have a very healthy distrust of doctors. I have a distrust of all drugs. But I will say I was far too trusting before. So I believe that I have developed my critical thinking skills, and I now have a profound sense of discernment, which can only help me moving forward. I have learned who my friends are. I lost a lot of people, but I know who supports me now, and I'm very grateful for little things that I probably took for granted before. So if you are watching this video, it's probably because someone you know has been impacted by these drugs, or you have been impacted yourself. I want you to know that healing is possible, that the pain will stop, that God is good, that miracles can and do happen, that you need to keep on believing, and that all you need to do is get through today. That is it. So I hope you found this helpful, and I want you to know that I am here if you need me. Thanks, everybody.